Hi, and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar show that talks about all things essence, that we sit around the campfire together and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to our soul's journey, to those beautiful stories of awakening and realization about who we are in truth in this lifetime. And we just really love to learn and grow and transform together on this show. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I love helping people to take those first steps onto their journey, to believe that anything is possible, to take that step across the sacred threshold into their own soul's journey, and where they get to have their own amazing stories come out and share them with others. So really, really excited and really happy today to welcome Dr. Meribeth Dayme. Welcome, Meribeth.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about the healing power of people's true voices and unblocking the chi so it can flow more freely. So Meribeth is a personal performance coach. She's known worldwide for her pioneering work and expertise in the function and use of the human voice. She's a coach and consultant for leaders in the fields of business, as well as coaches in theater, voice, and singing. As a former university professor of singing and anatomy, she helped establish a new standard for understanding the voice and how it works. She's won awards for her work and is a frequent guest lecturer and workshop leaders. And so she has books on voice as well that are used in universities and colleges. So cool. So you'll be able to check her out. Her website is listed in the show notes. It's meribethdayme.com. And so it's MERI Beth DAYME.com, and you'll have that in the show notes. But let's get started. I love this, that you're blending anatomy and the energetics and, the chakra and the chi and everything into this understanding of voice. And so tell us more about that. How did you start your journey with this?
Oh, wow. And that is the journey. And I think, I started singing from the time I was born almost. Apparently, the woman who kept me as a small child said that I never stopped singing. There was always that connection, and I grew up on the sea, and so there was, I don't know, it was space, it was singing, it was sky, it was stars, it was sea, it was everything, and that sort of came into me from the time I was little. And then in college, I studied singing, but interestingly, I'd had a father who's a pharmacist, and so all his friends was doctors. So I was very interested in science as well. I didn't pursue being a doctor as such, but I ended up from performance and then sacred music. I studied sacred music at Union Theological Seminary in New York. So I got a lot of the Christian and every kind of other religion background, studied all of their music. And I had great respect for that. But then when I went to get my doctorate, I had a mentor who said he wanted somebody to understand how the voice really worked and to do away with some of the mythology around the teaching of singing and voice. And there was a lot. I mean, the history is about 400 years old. So what he did was he got me as an experiment into the dental school anatomy course. And I had loved all things body and things like that. But wow, to be, all of a sudden just thrown into this course where they're cadavers and you're going to work on them. And I'd been in music all my life. So I just went, well, okay, this is going to be an interesting path. And it was the most amazing thing happened is, first of all, I passed the course and I hadn't had any science in a long time. But then I was made a teaching assistant in anatomy and in singing. So I had a joint appointment in both. And I had a wonderful professor of anatomy. I would walk in and I would say, the books say this about the voice and this is happening anatomically. And he would sit down and rather than just say, no, that's not right, he'd say, let's think through this. Can it possibly work that way physically, what they're saying? And I learned to ask a lot of questions. And so I was very lucky having somebody like that. So we went through a lot of the old vocal books, just looking at what people said, because so often voice teachers sort of invented the anatomy to fit the voice, which was very, very interesting. And anyway, to make a long story short, I finished my doctorate half in performance, half in anatomy and physiology, and ended up taking all these science courses and loving it. I mean, I think our bodies are the most amazing miracle that we could possibly have. I mean, we all look at them in terms of, oh, I've got this or I've got that, but it's just amazing what's possible in the body. And to continue, I taught then in university both subjects. I had a double appointment and taught music full time and anatomy full time. So I really had a double appointment. And eventually I won a NIH, or National Institutes of Health, postdoctoral grant to go study at the Royal College of Surgeons in London, England. And I thought I'd been sent on vacation. I was doing research, I was reading books that I hadn't gotten to read in years, and I was writing my own first book. But I was also just studying and following my nose and my curiosity into everything. And I spent 2 years there, and I had a lot of thinking about my being in the university. And I realized in some ways I had sold my soul to the devil. I mean, everything works for us for good in the end, and I loved that. But I realized it was time to leave. So I went back and honored my sabbatical, and then I left. I went back to England, and that started a whole new world where I worked both in business, but I started a 35-year adventure into the alternative world and healing of all other kinds of modalities, with hands, without hands, with mind. Studied Tai Chi and Qigong, and just had the most wonderful adventure into the more energetic realms. And then I studied energy healing with the mind, and that opened up just huge vistas and made me look at physics. And I know, in chemistry years ago, you learn everything vibrates, but you don't think much about it. You go, oh yeah, all those molecules vibrate, but that was physical. And then as soon as you get into the non-physical and realize we're a field and not a solid thing, and that it's not seeing is believing, it's kind of more like believing is seeing. So it just opened up this enormous world of possibility that I hadn't even really considered. And then I started to experiment with it with the voice, and that's when I realized, as you said earlier, that so many of our traditions actually taught things that block the chi in the body, and then we'd say, well, voice is difficult. And yes, it is if the chi is blocked. So I've been working since then to introduce energetic concepts in every way to the voice profession. That's been the main way, and to some business. Business isn't always as interested in that per se, but there's much more on a regular basis now. Many more people interested. So that's a long, brief survey of my journey.
Well, I think that's so cool. That it's just the fact that you worked on cadavers to understand how the voice works in actuality, to really understand the mechanics of it, to see its design,
Mm-hmm.
and and I think that's so tangible. That's so real and tangible, and I like making things really tangible. I think when we don't have that experience, then we can, like you said, make up a lot of stories about what we think it is because of how it feels in our body, or how, but if we're not really witnessing the mechanism, seeing it, then we're not really understanding it in fullness. We're understanding it partially, from our own bodies, the internal experience of it, but we're not really getting it. So that's so interesting that you had that you were able to do both of those, which seemed to me anyway, to be very disparate and not at all something that one person would be doing. So
You know, it does all fit because your voice is your body.
Yeah, I
It's
guess
not
so.
just it's not just two little strings hanging in your throat somewhere going twang, twang, twang. It's it's a whole body. That would be like trying to play a clarinet with a mouthpiece and nothing else.
That's so interesting, actually, that now that you're saying that, it would be like trying to play a guitar, but not ever seeing the guitar.
Well, just playing the strings, not not have not having a resonance board or anything else to sound. So you wouldn't get a lot. You'd get you know some vibration and some pitches, but you wouldn't get the fullness and the beauty of the whole resonance of the sound.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, how did you personally, because my work with the voice is, I think, more aligned with your second part of the journey in understanding voice.
Hmm.
You know, the energy of voice and the
Hmm.
chakras and the energy that flows through.
Hmm.
Um, that we can really block it up by a lot of psychological stuff. You know, like
Yes.
we can block up the energy in our throat by a lot of
uh,
psychological stuff. Talk a little bit about
oh,
that.
well, I think perceptions are everything, and I think any of us that work with people in general are dealing with changing their perceptions. Because if they're not willing to change those, then you're not going to get very far. And it's again, the seeing is believing or believing is seeing kind of thing, and it's a level of trust as well. But the emotions that we have certainly act like super glue in the energy field, and it doesn't mean we can't have emotions, but it's how they get in our way, and how our perceptions get in our way. And it's the whole thing of intent as well, because if you say I can't do this, then you're setting an intent that you can't do it. And or my voice won't do this, or I can't, I'm not able to do this, is basically issuing a statement of, I cannot, I will not, and my intention, I'm telling my brain that this is not possible. So if you can't change that with people, then you can't get very far in terms of working with
What I've noticed with the throat is that when you, I don't know, in my personal experience, I've noticed it with clients too. When you are bothered by something or feel less powerful around something, like usually in that context, like you feel disempowered by something or it makes you uncomfortable.
them. Hmm.
And in that case, the throat will like close up. Like it's
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
you've got a frog in your throat, or like you need to like cough and release something, right? Or you're choking.
Yeah.
Like it's so interesting. Why is that?
Well, I think what happens is we're not taught to be grounded. We're not taught to keep our feet on the ground and stay centered. This is something from the time we could learn from the time we're little. The first thing that happens with any apprehension, any fear, any guilt is I'm up here. And right away, you hear the change in my voice because it's no longer connected to the rest of my body, which doesn't feel very good. And 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 basically, it creates so much tension around the instrument. And one of the fun things about the physicality of our instrument is that it's malleable and soft, and it moves up and down, and it can get wider and it can get longer. It's not like any other musical instrument that's got a hard case, and I compare the way people are with their bodies sometimes to someone who plays a clarinet that's bent. And no matter what you do about that bent clarinet, you can move the holes, you can do everything. It's not going to have a good sound. So, what happens is when someone's really balanced and when they're grounded, when their feet are on the ground, and when their feet are pointed forward as well, then that is grounding. It puts them back down in their hara, or, it enables us to breathe deeply and not shallowly. I sometimes even say to people, I want you to breathe in through the back of your pelvis and breathe out through the front, which is basically your second chakra. So you breathe in and then speak out from the front of your second chakra. all of a sudden the voice gets lower, they get lower. If I tell them just take a deep breath, it doesn't work because they're still up here, and then everything gets clogged up. So with such a changeable and malleable instrument, then it's affected constantly by the physical, by the psychological, by the mental.
That's so
And
interesting that I've actually experienced that where
mm,
on my path of ascension,
mhm,
I dropping into my wise woman.
mhm,
There are many challenges along that path, which
yes,
too long to relate right here.
yes,
but
yes,
yeah, along that path that many of
yeah,
us go on,
yeah,
uh, you get really grounded in your wisdom, like a
mhm,
tree. I like
mhm,
to talk about it with my clients, like an old oak tree. Like you become one of those old wise oak trees, and your
mhm,
roots are deep into the earth, and when you're like that, like literally your voice drops octaves.
yes,
It
yes,
like literally drops. Like my voice used to be very high pitched
uh-huh,
and it's totally dropped. And people
yeah,
will comment on it. They'll say, your
yeah.
voice is so much lower. I'm like, that's because I'm in my wise woman.
Well, we need a lot more women in their wise women because when I left Europe several years ago and came to live in California, I hear a lot of women who sound like little girls still,
The
and
little
they're
girl thing is so annoying. I,
mm,
I'm just going to say it. I know I'm judging my former self. I'm going to stop that.
okay.
Here's why. It's because I know what's so much more possible on the other side. Like when we stop pretending like everything's
Mhm,
just okay and
mhm.
that we're okay having like hardly any air coming in and we're okay with like fluttering like up here like all the
Yes, up
time.
here like this.
And
Yes,
we're like,
I
oh,
know.
can I ask permission to have what I need?
Yeah,
I'm asking
yeah.
permission now, please, please come along and have a party with me and just like me, hee hee hee, and I'm all fine and everything's good and da 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 da. And when I hear grown women doing that, I'm like, you're so full of crap. I love you, and you're full of crap because you're
You
not
know,
really that way at all. Like that's such a lie. So
well, I have a term for it, particularly because I'm in California. I just say California chipmunks.
chipmunks. Well, it's this unwillingness to be real. And I think your voice. This is so interesting. Wow, I just made that connection.
I'm
Your
not
voice is
sure
the
it's
truth. Your voice,
yeah,
like your soul speaks through your voice and the voice is the truth. And so when it's aligned correctly, it's totally beautiful because your essence is speaking through your voice.
and through your energy field, and your energy field is
It's
is a
a
resonator.
resonance.
Yeah. I would say I don't think people deliberately do it.
No,
I
they
think
don't.
it's
They're just
eh,
hiding.
I think they don't know how to connect to themselves, and
Let's help them out, Meribeth.
yeah, that's a lot of my work is helping people connect. And then you're not working directly on the voice. You are, but you aren't. Because as soon as you get balanced in your body and grounded, and you get centered in your energy field as well, and you have a concept of the space around you, which is 360 degrees, it's not just in front, which a lot of speakers think. So they go out like this and then they bend their clarinet even more. Um,
Sit
but
back.
it's,
I keep reminding myself to sit back.
yeah, and it's it's people don't know how, and they've never even thought about it most of the time. Most people think, oh, my voice just comes with me and that's the one I have, and it's not possible to change.
Yeah, there's a
And
difference. It's so interesting.
mm,
We're having this conversation, and I'm thinking about all the tell signs, the tells that
mm,
your body gives you that
mm,
on your evolution path to your own soul expression.
mm,
Like it's even telling you through your voice where you are along your own soul evolution path.
mm,
Like are you in a space, because I've gone through a lot of these phases where like I had the high like we're gonna have fun and everything's fine and I'm fine and everything's
yeah,
okay. And I did that for a lot of
yeah,
years. Okay, so I'm not dissing it. I'm saying it's part of the journey, and I totally went on that part. Then I
mm,
had this part where I was trying to claim my power, and it was like forcing it. you know,
Forcing
like
it down. Yes.
forcing it down. I will
Right.
be powerful, you know, like
Yeah,
that part. Like, you
exactly.
won't take my power, like this angry kind of feminist thing. And
Yeah,
now I'm just kind of like settling into this, and I don't even claim to think that this journey's over, because I know it's not. But I'm in this part
never.
now where I'm like, wow, okay, I'm just sort of settling in
Mm,
to what's authentic. Like my laughter, like my laugh used to totally irritate my dad.
oh,
So I would
okay.
laugh, just my normal laugh, and he would get irritated. So I learned to like not laugh, you know, like
Mm,
to hide my laugh. And over the last 8 years, like, and he's a wonderful, you know, he's passed away now. He's totally
mm,
wonderful human being. But you know, those things that kids do sometimes, they just irritate you. You know,
mm,
you don't want to be irritated by it, but you are.
mm,
So over the last, 8 years, I've reclaimed my laughter, and it's totally goofy
mm.
and silly, and I'm sure it irritates some people, but a lot of people like it. So, and whatever, it just is.
And
So
it's you.
it just is. That's just
Mm,
it. So I think the
mm.
more we can just be who we are and not get so worried about, like, is it offending somebody, that helps your voice come out like in a more natural way that is actually, when you're actually being yourself, it's less irritating, you know,
But
because you don't feel the weirdness.
there's a little bit of danger in that, Carrie, because people already think they're being themselves.
I know, but they don't know. How do you get them to realize that, Maribeth? Because you can hear it. Like your ear is tuned to
My
hear
ears tuned.
your ear. Okay, so let's use me as I'll be a guinea pig.
Uh-huh.
I'll totally be. I will. I always am a guinea pig, because I want people
Okay.
to see it, like that I'm
Uh-huh.
okay, like being a guinea pig. So when
Uh-huh.
you listen to my voice, when you like hear me talk or things like that, like what is your fine tuned ear? What does it tell you?
When I listen to your voice, I hear a lot of clarity. I like the clarity of your voice. I hear joy in it too, Carrie.
There's a lot of
Um,
joy. Yeah,
yeah,
silliness.
and I hear a lot of life in it. If I were going to add something to your voice, I might add a little more warmth. I'm not saying it's not warm at all. It is, but that just means I would add a little more resonance and sense of space. So if you want to experiment for a minute,
Yeah, let's.
okay, I want you to think that you've got people behind you, beside you, and in front of you, and that your camera is also behind you. So you're not trying to talk to me or to the camera. You're trying to include what's behind you as well. Can you play with that?
Okay, I'm trying to do that now.
That
It feels
that's
a little
a very
awkward.
different sound.
It feels a little awkward, but I'm
Yes,
trying. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
So what you're saying is kind of like be in alignment in my space,
yeah, and the space is behind you. See,
and the
most people
space is
are,
behind me too. It's not just in front of me. Yeah, I see what you're
yeah.
saying. Like I was trying to like I felt myself leaning in, like
One one of the worst things. This is a if I could get rid of this word in the vocabulary of any speaker or a singer, and I would be happy to do it. It's the word project, and it's something that's embedded in the collective consciousness of teaching voice, whether it's speaking or singing. Everybody's saying, project, I can't hear you. And I'm saying, no, you fill the space. You don't aim at it, you fill it.
I see what
And
you're saying actually. It really resonates.
and you make the room your own. Now I'm sitting here in nature, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm occupying what's in front of me, which is my house, and what's behind me as well, which is rather big space with birds and all kinds of sounds that are going on that you may or may not be able to hear. But what I do and what's fun is I make all of that my orchestra for supporting my voice.
I love that. And okay, here's the difference. I just had this huge realization, which I'm
Hmm.
sure other people you work with also might have. I was conditioned in a system that I think many of us are of debate. Like
Yes.
like you've got to show up and put your energy big and powerful to like
And push everybody over.
force it forward and push everybody else out, because whoever's the biggest wins.
Uh-huh.
Whoever's the
Yep.
biggest and the loudest and the most confident and the most sure win.
Yep. Yep.
And that is a domestication. That's a huge conditioning. But what you're saying
Yes.
is like being more in your power. Like there's actually sometimes there's more power in a whisper if you're holding the space.
Absolutely. And it's about your presence, and your presence is circular. It's everywhere. It's your whole field. And what I get people to do if they're in an auditorium or on stage is to imagine that their energy field covers the whole auditorium and behind them on top and in the bottom, and that is their home, and they are inviting their audience into their home. Like, as far as I'm concerned, today I'm in your home. I mean, and you're in mine, and that space, because we're on a broadcast, is infinite because it goes out to the universe basically. But if it were in a room or in a place that had walls as such, then I would still say expand your space to the edges of of where people are, so that they're all in your home.
And you know what's so cool about this
Mm,
is it's about trust.
yes.
And it's like this is divine feminine energy versus the masculine. The masculine wants to like push it forward and put it in your face.
Yep.
And the feminine is more inviting. It's like,
Yes.
welcome, come in,
Yes. Yep.
come here, come hither. You know,
Like,
like,
come into my warm kitchen or my hearth, or come
yeah,
and share the warmth of my space.
come and share the warmth of my space. And you're welcome to be the, this is something that, you know, for those people out there who feel like wallflowers, it can
Hmm.
be hard to speak up. You go to a party or you go to someone's home and you can feel like you don't have space to speak. So here's a little trick that I started doing years ago, and then
Hmm.
I ended up being like the hub, which is that I
Okay.
just started pretending I was the hostess.
Hmm.
I just would show up everywhere as the
Hmm.
hostess, like I'm hosting this party.
Hmm.
And I wasn't hosting the party. I was as insecure as the next person. I was
Hmm.
totally insecure and convinced that nobody cared about me or liked me or whatever. But I
Hmm.
just pretended as if I was the host. I just
Hmm.
started meeting everybody. I was like, "What's your name? What are you doing here? You know,
Uh-huh.
what do you like about who do you know here?" And I would just start interviewing people.
Well, that took a little bit of courage on your part.
It did. I've always been
Yeah.
courageous.
Yeah. And I think, those people who are shy, one thing you can do is just sit there and enlarge your space. You don't have to talk to anybody yet. Start to think of them as being in your home, kind of like that, except maybe not talking right away. And we have a fun thing. This is a very woo-woo thing. Put pink bubbles around everybody because pink stands for love.
Yeah, pink bubbles. I like pink bubbles. I like
So
rainbow
you,
bubbles.
and I used to, even in faculty meetings, because I would get so bored, I can't tell you. I would sit there and I'd say, "Oh, John looks tired today. I think I'll send him some yellow sparkles." I used to play games like that to see if I could change the energy in the room, and you can. And what most people don't think about when they're in a space and there are other people is that they feel like they need to have their own private space, rather than the fact that they can occupy the whole space, as can anyone else in the room. That you're not pushing anyone out, or you're not being pushy. It's just like, here I am, welcome, come and talk to me.
You know, but that's scary for people because,
Mm,
you know, at a certain point along the journey, you have this idea that there's negative energy and toxic people.
yep.
You know, and it is okay if you're on that part of the journey, it is real. It totally is.
Mm, yep.
And it is part of it, you know, that understanding. You got to go through that phase. And but then on the other side of that phase, you start to realize that those triggers are just showing you stuff inside your own field that you have repressed, denied, shoved away, not wanted to look at. And so this
Mm,
person's just raising it up for your attention so you can see it within yourself and send some love over there and include it in. Like
mm,
I've had so many powerful integration healings where a forgiveness piece came in. Like when I was with the one that was like, "Hi, everything's fine." That me,
mm,
you know, where I just invited her in and she really felt, I remember remember being her. I
Mhm.
I talk about her in the third person, but I remember being that person.
Right.
I'm not there anymore. I'm in a different space, but I remember being
Mhm.
like I have to be nice and I have to do everything that everybody wants in order to like me, because really if they found out who I really am, they wouldn't like me at all. And that's how she felt about
Absolutely.
herself, you
I've
know?
been there. Yeah.
Yeah. And there
Yeah.
was this moment recently, I had another integration. They're always happening. It's so interesting. But I just invited, I was like, "Oh my gosh, welcome. No,
Mhm.
come. You're so welcome here. Like you can be here
Mhm.
all over this space and it's
Mhm.
okay."
Mhm.
And she kind of was like, "Are you sure? Like you're not ashamed of me?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not ashamed of you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be me. So,
Mhm.
and I like me, you know, so I like you." So,
I quite often put that part, when I have some part like that, and I've had plenty of them, I put them to work. Okay, here's your job.
well, usually if my throat gets blocked up, it's one of those aspects of self that's come forward
Mhm.
to be seen and witnessed, like this is
Mhm.
making me uncomfortable, or I feel powerless right now, or
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
help in this situation because maybe I'm talking with my mom,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something, and I feel like I can't speak, or
Right.
a lot of conditioning. And so
Mhm.
that your throat can be a powerful tool for spiritual evolution because it can tell you a lot of things about yourself.
Well, it tells everybody else about you too. I mean, you know very well if a good friend of yours calls and your voice isn't quite something that day, they'll go, "Are you okay?" They haven't seen you, they hear
Yeah,
you.
they hear it. They
And
feel it in your
and
resonance of your
yeah, and
voice.
quite often the first thing anyone knows about you is your voice, whether it's on the phone, whether it's a message. I mean, yeah, in the day of Facebook Live and all the videos we're doing these days, it's quite often your face, but it's your voice that usually captures people first. And if that's unwelcome, then that's hard. It's like if somebody's talking to you like this, you're going, "Oh, geez, do I have to talk to this person?"
Well, what's interesting too is as I've progressed on my journey, I've learned that my voice can also be an instrument of healing. And so I learned along the way that the cadence that I speak with my clients, like say I'm leading them through a meditative journey, I've
Yeah.
learned how to modulate my voice, and I'm not consciously doing it. All I'm consciously doing is getting out of the way
Hmm.
of the great spirit or my guides or whatever wants to flow through me for the healing. I'm just getting out of the way of it. And as I get out of the way, then my voice is used for the healing. And I'm in the process right now of learning how to do that with healing songs. They're called Icaros. And that is
Oh,
just
yeah. I
so
know those. Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, you know
Yeah.
about this.
I do. Yeah.
It
I actually
heals.
worked with a shaman with her voice. She was singing, and she sang her Icaros to me because she was losing her voice at the end of a weekend of heavy work. And so we worked with her. And of course, I wasn't going to try to teach her singing. I knew what she did. So we used her songs as an approach to getting her voice so it wouldn't be tired at the end of a long ceremony of singing. And that was great fun. I love doing that. But let me say something else about the vibration of the voice. Since we are nothing but vibration and we are a field of vibration, then all we're doing when we're connected is simply sounding ourselves. And I like the idea of sounding myself. And
Yeah, singing your vibration.
that's all you're doing is tuning into your vibration and magnifying it. And that is healing to be around. It doesn't mean you have to call yourself a healer, but you've stumbled onto my mission. My mission is that when people are fully grounded and in themselves and in their energy field, then they are healing to be around, whether it's on radio or whether it's in live performance or live speaking. Then people have the potential, the audience has the potential of taking away some of that healing. And that to me is where we belong. And that is the ideal way for my voice to be used. not to be, I don't have to put a label on it, but just to know that that's what happens with your voice and that vibration.
Absolutely. And I've had it happen where I speak some words or I tell a powerful story and I'm in that flow and I'm letting my throat open and my spirit lead. And that story and the emotion that I'm feeling in that story actually touches people's hearts. It opens up their heart and
Hmm.
jogs loose that little bit of whatever it was that needed
Hmm.
expression inside of them. And that's what I also learned about the healing it grows is that it goes right into the heart and
Hmm.
opens it up and the heart does the healing, so
Hmm.
it's so powerful, our voices. And if I agree with you, if we could just understand how healing our own voices are with
Hmm.
with also loving kind words,
Can I tell you a
part of it.
story?
Yeah.
I love this story. Um, I was in a therapy clinic, wandering around behind the speech therapist and knowing more about what they did and how they worked, because I was teaching them anatomy. And they had a woman there who had something labeled spastic dysphonia, which is so much tension in the vocal cords that it came out like this. It was really, really hard to, she was like, everything was just squeezed out in the worst possible way. And they said, oh, let's give her to Meribeth. I was going, so I sat down with this lady, not having the first clue about what I was going to do or say or whatever. So I just started talking to her, and she was, of course, answering in that voice. And finally, I don't know why, I looked up and I said, "Do you sing?" And she said, "Yes." She was like, "Yes, I sing." And so I went, "Okay, sing me something." So she started to sing America the Beautiful. And it was one of the most stunning examples of singing I've heard. I mean, it was gorgeous. It was beautiful. And my jaw was like, hello? And when I finally got it back up, I looked at her and I said, I don't understand. If you can sing, why can't you speak? And her answer was, when I sings, it comes from the heart.
Wow.
Two very different voices in the same human being. And one was perception, you know, the other was, this is my normal life and this is what I do in my normal life. But when I sing, that's different. So if you think a physical part of you can't do something and you go into another mode and it can do it, then to me, I go, okay, if one thing's possible, it's possible for something else as well. But it was a big lesson for me in what happens when people perceive they're coming from their spirit, really.
Yeah, what happens when people perceive that? That's
Mm,
amazing. And
mm,
there is definitely that truth. That was a very extreme case, but I think that
mm,
truth is the same for everybody.
mm,
There's a difference when we're speaking from our small self and
mm-hmm.
when we're allowing our spirit to lead the way through our heart. Our
Yeah,
voice is so different. It's just such a
yeah,
different thing, and you can hear it when you start getting
yep,
attuned to it.
yes,
You can hear
absolutely.
it in yourself. When I hear it in myself, when I hear like that small self come out of my voice, I get that uncomfortable feeling like, oh, my ego just came out, like there it is. And then I go like,
Mm.
okay, sweetie, it's all right. You could be here
Right.
too, but I do get an initial recoil, like, oh no. And
Mhm.
I like, no, it's okay. It's all right. So
Mm.
it's a little coaching, we can coach ourselves through that process too of really
Mhm.
starting to integrate all the aspects of ourself and what aspects of self get to speak, and I think that's
Mhm.
important that they all get to speak at some level, so that we
Yes.
can be integrated.
Mhm.
Yeah, beautiful.
Bec
Oh, I love the work that you do with clients. This is so amazing. This helping them unblock because unblocking their throats is so much more than just singing. I mean, singing is a beautiful thing, but it means more than people think it means. I don't think people understand that singing is healing and that speaking the truth through your own voice and your own resonance is so healing and powerful. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's like we talk all the time and we're not aware of like what a gift it is.
Mm, mm, yes. And I think a lot of the self-development things, a lot of the yogic breathing, a lot of the qigong, a lot of things like that aid in getting someone centered and getting you in your body. I like to use some fun breathing things to get people centered. For instance, I found if I'm tight here, it's hard to take a deep breath, and everybody's going take a deep breath. But for me, what taking a deep breath means is a little bit different. I have a breath that I use. It's kind of an offshoot of qigong, which is you breathe in from the bottom of your spine to the top of your head, and you breathe back down the front of your spine. This is very deep in your body. So if I'm breathing there, I'm not trying to make this huge body by taking air. And I find I can bypass this tension that may be here.
Hmm.
And I'll just, it's like making a circle around your spinal cord. It's very, very deep. Some people call it the cosmic breath, but I use it with sound too. You breathe in and then you speak out using that sound going down your body and using that breath going back down the center of your spinal cord. And it keeps you centered so much in your body. It's not an out thing, it's very deep in. And because you're not thinking up, down, or in and out, you're just thinking around this very narrow loop, then it's easier to breathe.
That's beautiful. And I also have noticed that sometimes clients have that tightness in their chest or they have like that tightness in their throat, right? When they're thinking about
Mm-hmm.
something. And
Mm-hmm.
then once we start paying attention to it with interest and witnessing and love and attention and breathe into that space, it transitions. We do a little
Mm-hmm.
energy healing on it and that thing is gone. And they're like, wow, I don't have my throat doesn't feel that way anymore. I'm like, that's because
Exactly.
your throat instantly responds, like your whole body actually, but I think we notice it more in our throats, like
Yeah.
instantly responds to what's subconsciously happening for you in your body and your awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I find one of the patterns that people have either when they're overthinking or they are hesitant about speaking is they'll take a breath and hold everything and they don't let it go before they speak. So then it gets caught up in this kind of knot in here. So one of the fun things to do is pretend you've got axle grease in your neck and that it can't fix. So you just slowly move it as you breathe and as you speak. Now, you don't do that in performance, but to break that lock of, and I get singers who do that. They'll start a song by going, and everything, you get paralysis before you start the song. And so it's just as easy to keep everything moving. It's like keeping the chi moving, keeping everything fluid in the body.
Yeah, it's another thing to be aware of when you're not breathing. I'll tell you what, it was a really powerful lesson for me around that
Mm-hmm.
is spending a week camping on Alsangate in Peru at like 15,000 feet.
Okay.
Guess what?
That, yeah,
If you don't breathe, you're
you
going to
ain't got
die.
any air.
If you don't breathe, you're going to die.
Yep,
So you
exactly.
breathe.
Yeah.
Deep belly breathing. I almost got they take your with this group I went with the Four Winds, they bring a medical doctor just in case, there's any
Yeah.
problems because
Good idea.
it's
Yeah.
actually a serious thing, people. If you've never been
Yeah.
at altitude, it's nothing to mess around with. So they have a
No.
doctor and they test
Mm.
your oxygen levels, in your blood,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
they test everything. They use this little machine. So they
Mhm.
test you to make sure that you're doing, and so mine was a little bit on the lower side, like from preferred. And I was like remembering my husband saying, Carrie, you always stop breathing. And I went, oh gosh, I must have stopped breathing. I must have gotten nervous or scared. And people do this all the time, like especially women, stop breathing. I had
And
to
they
start
do it
belly
when they
breathing.
think. Yeah, they
Yeah, when
do
they
the
think.
very thing. And the very thing that will keep you from getting your thought is the breath. It's like you paralyze
Yeah, if
yourself
your
to
body's
think.
being starved for breath, guess what? You're going to get
Yeah.
anxious.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you have
Yeah, or you're
anxiety, try breathing.
Yeah, and if
Good first
you
effort.
can't get that thought through, then try breathing because,
Try
you
breathing.
know, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
deep
like,
belly breathing.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you ask somebody a simple question, they'll quite often hold their breath before they come out with it.
Well, and you know, Maribeth, like a lot of people aren't trained how to sing. Like I took choir and all that, you know, so
Mhm.
my teacher was always telling me to belly breathe. He said if your stomach isn't going out, you're not breathing. He's like, and I'm like, well, I'm breathing, you know. And he's like, no, like breath through your belly, like that's where the breath comes from. But we're, you know, I think a lot of us are trained. We want to be skinny and have flat stomachs, and so you know, we don't let our stomach go out. Well, we're
Well, it's
depriving
impossible.
ourselves of breath.
Well, if your stomach is held tightly, then there's no place to go for the lungs to expand. But I think, the belly breathing, um, I like to get people to think of breathing through the lower back ribs rather than thinking of having to breathe through the belly. And I think what's happened is if somebody's posture is fairly rigid in the back, then the place that you see people breathe is through the belly. But if their back is working and flexible, then those lower back ribs are a little more effective than just thinking of the belly.
And it feels good. Sometimes you can crack your back when you're doing that.
Exactly.
You get an
Exactly.
adjustment. Adjustment's the
Yeah.
correct word according to my chiropractor.
Yes. Yes.
So get an adjustment. I love
Yeah.
that. They pop into
Yeah.
place and boy, it feels good. So you can, if you have a tight back, yeah, you can breathe into your back and it'll loosen up some of that.
Yeah. And if you can't feel that, you can lean over your legs, just completely flop over your legs with your head down. And the fact that your belly is now on your legs, it's not going to move very much and your back will move instead.
Awesome trick.
And
Okay,
you can get
so
your sense of that. Yeah.
everybody needs to go do that now. Practice practice the belly breathing and practice leaning over on your belly and breathing with your back and see what you
Yeah.
notice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you so much for this interview. It's been really great. We've had a lot of good wisdom shared here, and I hope that everybody out there got some good tips and some insights into your own, you know, frog in the throat and choking and, you know, thoughts not coming and not being able to
Mhm.
speak and all that kind of stuff, and got some good tips there. And so, how can people work with you, or do you have any way for them to get started with you? You have a free gift or anything for them to get to know you better?
Of course, if someone wants to have a short session with me, I'm happy to give a 20-minute session to anyone and for free, and they can contact me and we'll set it up. My calendar's not totally set up at the moment. I hope it will be shortly. So they will need to contact me, which would be either through my website, www.meribethdayme.com. So that's one way. And then I'm happy to talk with them about their needs and how I can service them, not only their voice, but how they are using their energy in their speaking, or if we've got a singer with a singer as well. Uh, I also have an online course that I'm happy to give someone a 50% discount on. It's called Voice on Stage, and it sells normally for $4.95, and I'd be happy to sell that to anyone on this call for $250 if they're interested in that. And there is also the possibility of working with me privately. And there are packages for partly the course online, which is not in person, but has videos and text and all kinds of things. And they can add to that one or two private sessions with me to enhance what they're doing on that course.
Beautiful. Thank you
So,
so much. That's really generous. Thank you for that
mm-hmm,
offer. And that will
mm-hmm,
be in the show notes, everybody. So if you
mm-hmm,
need to see that in writing, then it'll be, you know, to find the website and all that, that's fine.
mm-hmm,
You can look at the show notes. And if you're on the email list, it'll be in your email. So you can refer back to that.
mm-hmm,
And it's also, of course, on the website, soulnectar.show.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, so We're going to invite you to check that out, to really pay attention to your voice. And if you come to any realizations, give us some comments and feedback on the iTunes or on the soulnectar.show or on the YouTube, wherever you found us. Give us
I would
some
love
feedback.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'd love to hear from you, what you think and what
Mhm.
you learned and what you
Mhm.
found out about yourself that you
Mhm.
didn't know before. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to give some kisses.
Mm.
And before we give the kisses, I just want to make one more invitation. If you guys are interested in reinventing yourself, please check out my website. And the Reinvent Yourself circles have started up. They're going to be in January. Starting off, we'll have another round in April. We'll be starting these circles. If you're looking for transformation, you can check out carriehummingbird.com, Reinvent Yourself. You'll find it there. And okay, here come the kisses now. Ready, everybody? Here they come. Mwah. Hope you have a blessed day, and we'll see you next week on Soul Nectar Show. Bye, everybody.
Bye.